Hey, good morning, Rob Stanton's class. I figured I'd get a little fresh air while I answered your questions. Let's see here. Oh, the Interahamwe coming to the orphanage. I wasn't exactly clear on your question why they came to the orphanage, but I thought maybe giving you just a little bit of background. Interahamwe are, before the genocide, they were just neighbor people. And so then when the genocide started and parents started sending their kids to the orphanage looking for a safe place, then they would have had friends in the orphanage. They would have had neighbors in the orphanage. It's so easy when we look at this just to think of it in terms of Hutu and Tutsi. But there were people hidden in the orphanage that were brought there by Interahamwe. And the Interahamwe said to Damas, the director of the orphanage, you got to protect these people. And so it's a very fluid thing, this the presence of the Interahamwe at the orphanage. And yet other times they came looking for people at the orphanage and they killed them there at the orphanage. And so, yeah, that was a wild dynamic. You couldn't really just label, oh, these were good guys or bad guys, because within every group you had people who were both rescuing and who were killing. You talked about any restoration projects after the genocide. There were, of course, a lot of physical restoration stuff for, you know, roads, infrastructure, water systems, and get electricity and stuff. But the biggest restoration project or challenge was to restore trust. How are you going to restore trust when your government has been ordering the murder of people, and you thought you'd be safe at churches and people were murdered in churches, and your neighbors even betrayed you? So one of the greatest restoration projects, which was part of a massive restorative justice effort, was Gacaca. And I don't know how much you guys have looked at Gacaca, but it was a big deal. You know, you pick 7 people in your community that you trust, and they kind of get a crash course, sort of their facilitators, their judges on, say, Thursday afternoon, school is closed, and all the shops are closed. You got to go to the soccer field, and then people would come out from prison and confess. And so the Gacaca process was an enormous project around the country. Man, they were doing research, investigations. There would be investigators for Gacaca who would collect people's stories. They say they got like 1 million little brown notebooks filled with stories of people's testimony of what happened during the genocide. So that was not only important in trying to deal with the people who did killing, but it was also super empowering for the people of the community. You know, for generations in Rwanda and in so many other colonized countries, people got the message that, you know, you can't solve your own problems. You've got to turn to the government for solutions. You got to turn to foreigners, to outside sources. And so Gacaca was very empowering in helping people understand that they could be part of the solution. There's a lot more we could say about that, but we'll keep going here. You asked me about my thoughts about President Kagame's election for the 3rd term. Well, it's what the people elected. You know, we look at it so narrowly at times and think he changed the Constitution. He didn't. The people did I mean, we have amendments to our Constitution in America. I think when people have security, when they have a place for their kids to go to school, when they can get medical treatment, I think that, and they look at their neighbors, and there's all kinds of conflict in the Congo, and Burundi is a mess and stuff. They're like, we got a good thing going here. And so, well, I'm not sure if it's getting a little bit too windy. We'll check it out. But no, I think I think Rwanda is venturing in an area that some might say is new, some might say is not so new. But their Minister of Foreign Affairs called it consensual politics. We're all about adversarial, controversial, confrontational. That's what we're about, confrontational politics. Rwanda, like its culture, is working towards consensual politics. But Yeah, it's very hard to argue with progress, security, stability for people. Let's see. Did people seek refuge? Yeah, there were people who sought refuge at the orphanage, probably over 400. It was 80 at the beginning, and at the end there were more than 400. And yeah, I did mention that Hutus did come there and kill people. Why did I stay? It was largely about the two people in our home. The young lady who lived and worked in our home, she had a Tutsi ID card. She was marked to be killed. Young man who came in the evening to do night watch, he was trapped there again. He had a Tutsi ID card. He was marked to be killed. And so it was largely an effort, hopefully, to save those two people. I think also the decision to stay was probably the result of, I don't know, a bunch of stories I read as a kid. You believe that you can make a difference, and you've got a lot better chance of making a difference. If you don't believe you can make a difference, then yeah, you're not gonna make a difference. And so those stories, whether they were Bible stories, you know, David and Goliath, or Queen Esther, for such a time as this, or Joseph, you know, in Egypt, or whether they were stories of the Underground Railroad or the French Resistance. I was really fortunate to have parents who really helped me understand that you can make a difference. And somehow, I didn't know the phrase at that time, but understanding the power of presence is something that I think was somehow in the back of my mind, that enormous respect that they had for foreigners, and that I could use that to hopefully protect the people in my house. And the last question. Oh yeah, also you wanted to know if anybody else wanted to stay with me. My dad, when he found out that my wife and I had talked, we prayed, we made the decision I would stay. Then my dad said, okay, then I'm staying. You know, he was there visiting, helping with the project. And I said, no, Dad, you've got to take the family to safety. And that's, yeah, there's a lot more to that story. And why wasn't I a target? If they knew that I was helping the Tutsis, why wasn't I a target? I was. At different times I was told that I was a target. I was told that the next time I came out of my house I would be killed. I think one of the reasons that I wasn't killed was because of relationships that were formed even before the genocide. The relationship that we formed with the colonel who was in charge of the city. I had a travel permit with his name and signature on it. Those relationships were really powerful, and they've brought home to me the idea that you can find allies among the enemy. That this idea of, you know, we only look to our friends for allies. Nah, in some hard situations, some of our most powerful allies would be among, and I like to put quotation marks on there, among people we would, quote, call the enemy. Because again, as soon as you say the word enemy, you think, oh, well, that's you know, somebody who's 100% bent on killing people. And I don't think anybody's 100%. When you're doing inhumane things, you're a human, and you're doing inhumane things, there's a conflict going on inside of you. And we got to appeal to that conflict in people. We've got to believe that it is possible to find allies among the enemy. Anyway, good to talk to you guys. Hope we'll meet up again sometime, maybe Skype or something. Take care.